Imagine rushing through a busy airport, bags in hand, focused on catching your flight, when suddenly chaos erupts. Security officers swarm a high-ranking airport official, their voices stern, their movements urgent. Passengers stop in their tracks, murmuring in shock as whispers of corruption and betrayal spread like wildfire. Something big is happening, and nobody can believe it. This isn't just another routine airport security check. This is a full-blown scandal unraveling in real time. An official, someone trusted to keep the system running smoothly, is caught red-handed in a shocking crime that has left both travelers and employees stunned. The very person responsible for enforcing rules has been breaking them all along, and now the truth is finally coming out. Sources say this official had been operating under the radar for months, maybe even years. Some suspected something was off, but had no proof. But today, the evidence is undeniable. Surveillance footage, confidential documents, and eyewitness testimonies all point to one disturbing reality. This was an inside job. The question is, what exactly was this official up to? And how deep does this scandal really go? As authorities close in, tensions rise. The official's face shifts from confidence to panic, realizing there's no way out this time. Fellow staff members look on in disbelief, some shocked, others seemingly unsurprised. Was this an elaborate scheme, or were others involved? And more importantly, what does this mean for airport security as a whole? This story is bigger than just one person getting caught. It raises serious questions about who we trust, how corruption can hide in plain sight, and what it takes to finally bring the truth to light. Stay with us as we break down the details, uncover hidden connections, and reveal how this jaw-dropping moment played out. You won't believe what happens next. Just hours before the shocking arrest, everything at the airport seemed business as usual. Travelers moved through security, flights were announced over the intercom, and employees carried out their routines without suspicion. But behind the scenes, something much darker was unfolding. A quiet investigation had been in motion for weeks, led by officials who had started to notice patterns, missing records, unusual transactions, and inconsistencies that couldn't be ignored. It all started when a routine audit flagged some irregularities. At first, it seemed like a minor clerical error, numbers that didn't quite add up. But the deeper investigators looked, the more alarming the situation became. Money had been shifting hands in ways that didn't make sense. Certain bags were being rerouted without clear explanations. And then there were the whispers from staff members, subtle warnings, odd behavior, hushed conversations that hinted at something bigger lurking beneath the surface. One security officer, who had been quietly monitoring the situation, noticed that this particular official always seemed to be in the right place at the wrong time. Whether it was a missing shipment or a security breach, they were nearby, but never directly involved. It was as if they were orchestrating something just outside of plain sight. But suspicions alone weren't enough. The authorities needed proof. That's when they set a trap. Over the last few days, undercover surveillance had been watching closely, tracking every move. Cameras caught details that had previously gone unnoticed. A coded exchange in the hallway, a subtle handoff near baggage claim, a last-minute change to a flight manifest that didn't add up. Piece by piece, the truth started to emerge, and what they found was worse than anyone had imagined. But the biggest question remains, who else is involved? Could this be the work of one rogue official, or is there a larger network operating from within? As investigators dig deeper, they uncover more than they bargained for, and the real story is just beginning. What happens next will change everything. As the investigation picked up speed, more disturbing details began to surface. What seemed like one official acting alone now looked like something much bigger. Authorities reviewing security footage noticed that certain employees appeared in the background of multiple suspicious incidents. Were they just unlucky, or were they part of a larger scheme? The deeper they dug, the more it seemed like this wasn't just one person cutting corners. It was a well-organized operation happening right under everyone's noses. One employee, a longtime baggage handler, had been raising quiet concerns for months. He had seen things that didn't sit right, certain luggage getting special treatment, documents being switched at the last second, and high-ranking staff having hushed conversations in restricted areas. But every time he mentioned it, he was brushed off. "You're imagining things," they said. "Just focus on your job." But he couldn't ignore it. And now, with an arrest already made, he was finally ready to talk. Meanwhile, passengers who had unknowingly crossed paths with the accused official were beginning to piece things together. Some remembered strange delays that never had an explanation. Others recalled seeing the official in places they shouldn't have been, near cargo holds, slipping past security checkpoints without scanning a badge. Even airport vendors started whispering about odd behaviors, unexplained shipments, and missing inventory that had been dismissed as clerical errors. Tensions within the airport staff were reaching a boiling point. Some employees were furious, feeling betrayed by a colleague they had trusted. Others were eerily silent, as if they knew more than they were willing to admit. And then there were the higher-ups, executives and managers scrambling to control the damage. Were they truly shocked by the revelations, or had they known all along and simply turned a blind eye? As authorities continued to press for answers, a new problem emerged. Evidence was disappearing. Surveillance footage that should have been there was mysteriously corrupted. Key witnesses suddenly stopped cooperating. It was clear that someone somewhere was still pulling strings. And the worst part, the biggest reveal was yet to come. The walls were closing in. Investigators were racing against time, trying to secure the evidence before it vanished completely. But every time they got close to a breakthrough, something or someone got in the way. Witnesses who had once been eager to speak suddenly refused to answer calls. Security logs from key dates were wiped clean. It was as if the entire airport was working against them, protecting secrets buried deep within its walls. Meanwhile, the arrested official was sitting in a high-security holding room silent. They hadn't asked for a lawyer, hadn't denied the accusations, just sat there waiting. The eerie calmness unsettled even the most experienced officers. It was as if they knew something no one else did, as if they were playing a game where they were still holding the winning hand. Then late one night, an anonymous tip changed everything. A low-level staff member, terrified but desperate to set things right, slipped a note into an investigator's bag. Just 2 words were written: ***, check manifest. ***, when authorities pulled the latest flight records, their suspicions were confirmed. There were unexplained changes in cargo shipments, inconsistencies that pointed to a much bigger scheme. And the worst part, the flights in question were still departing, meaning the operation hadn't stopped. Someone was still running it from the inside. Security was tightened, surveillance increased, and undercover officers were placed in key positions. But even with all these precautions, the corruption ran deeper than anyone had expected. High-level officials who had been investigating the case suddenly took unexpected leave. Employees known to be cooperating were reassigned or fired without warning. Someone with serious power was pulling the strings, making sure the truth never saw the light of day. Then came the breaking point. A crucial piece of evidence, one that could expose everything, was about to be seized. Officers moved in, ready to shut down the operation once and for all. But just as they reached their target, alarms blared through the airport. A major diversion had been triggered, sending security scrambling in the opposite direction. By the time they recovered, it was too late. Something or someone was gone. And with it, the case had just taken its most dangerous turn yet. Panic spread through the airport like wildfire. Security scrambled to regain control, but the damage had already been done. The alarms had provided just enough chaos for someone to slip away unnoticed. When authorities reached the secured area where the key evidence had been stored, they found the worst possible scenario. The storage unit had been breached, and the most critical files were gone. It was a devastating blow. Whoever was behind, this wasn't just one step ahead. They were controlling the game. But then something unexpected happened. As officials combed through the remaining evidence, a single misplaced document caught their eye. It was an overlooked shipping log, one that should have been deleted like the others, but had somehow remained. And what it revealed changed everything. The operation wasn't just about financial corruption or smuggling, it was tied to something much bigger. The names listed on the document weren't just employees or passengers. They were powerful figures, people with influence far beyond the airport. Some of them weren't even supposed to be in the country. Suddenly, the silence from the arrested official made sense. They weren't protecting themselves. They were protecting someone else, someone far more dangerous. Investigators realized they were no longer dealing with just a crime inside the airport. This was a full-scale cover-up, stretching beyond security personnel and airport executives. The official in custody wasn't at the top of the chain. They were just another pawn. Meanwhile, a hidden figure had been watching everything unfold. Deep within the airport's restricted areas, a man in a suit stood by a terminal window, his phone pressed to his ear. His expression never changed, even as chaos erupted behind him. "It's been handled," he muttered before slipping through a side door, disappearing into the night. Authorities were now faced with an impossible dilemma. They had proof that something much larger was at play, but they had lost their strongest leverage. The official in custody was refusing to speak, the evidence was gone, and now, someone with serious power was making sure this investigation ended before it uncovered the real truth. The question was, how far were they willing to go to keep it buried? Just when it seemed like the investigation had hit a dead end, a shocking breakthrough changed everything. A junior airport technician, unaware of the chaos unfolding at the highest levels, had been running routine maintenance on the surveillance system. While checking the backup servers, once thought to be wiped clean, he stumbled upon something unexpected. A single uncorrupted file. It was a video, recorded just hours before the breach. Authorities rushed to review the footage, hearts pounding. And there it was, clear as day. The moment the secured storage unit had been compromised, a shadowy figure moved swiftly, bypassing security as if they knew every blind spot. But it wasn't just anyone. It was an airport executive, someone who had been helping lead the investigation from the start. The realization hit hard. This entire time, the person they had trusted to uncover the truth had been the one working against them. The official who had been arrested was just a distraction, a convenient scapegoat to keep eyes off the real mastermind. And now, with the evidence in hand, authorities moved quickly to make their next move. As investigators closed in on the executive's office, they expected resistance, denials, maybe even another attempt to cover things up. But what they found was something even more chilling. The office was empty. Papers had been shredded, hard drives wiped clean, and the executive's phone sat abandoned on the desk. A single note was left behind, scrawled in hurried handwriting. Asterisk, asterisk, too late. Asterisk, asterisk. At that same moment, a private jet was already taxiing down a remote runway, set to take off. The same man who had disappeared into the night was on board, speaking into a secure phone. They got close, he admitted, staring out at the dark horizon, but not close enough. The case wasn't just about airport corruption anymore. This went higher, deeper, beyond what anyone had imagined. While one chapter had ended, another had just begun, and the real mastermind. They were still out there, already planning their next move. The jet disappeared into the night, leaving nothing but unanswered questions in its wake. Authorities scrambled to issue alerts, but deep down, they knew the truth. The mastermind had planned this escape long before anyone had even suspected them. The arrest, the missing evidence, the sabotaged investigation, it had all been carefully orchestrated to buy just enough time. And it had worked. Back at the airport, the fallout was immediate. Employees who had unknowingly worked alongside the corrupt officials were left in shock. Some felt betrayed, realizing they had trusted people who had been deceiving them all along. Others, however, weren't surprised at all. They had seen the signs but never imagined it ran this deep. The official who had been arrested finally started talking, revealing details about how the operation had been running for years, hidden in plain sight. But without the ringleader in custody, justice still felt out of reach. The security protocols at the airport were overhauled overnight. New systems were put in place, employees were questioned, and every suspicious transaction was put under scrutiny. But even with these efforts, a nagging question remained: how many others were still out there, waiting for the right moment to strike again? For the investigators who had worked tirelessly to expose the truth, the case felt unfinished. They had pulled back the curtain on a massive operation, but they knew this was only a piece of something much larger. The man who had escaped hadn't just vanished, he had moved on, possibly starting again somewhere else. As the airport returned to business as usual, a quiet unease lingered. Passengers rushed to their flights, announcements echoed through the terminals, and on the surface, everything seemed normal. But beneath it all, a hard lesson had been learned. Corruption doesn't always come from the shadows. Sometimes it operates in plain sight, disguised as trust, hidden behind power. And while this chapter had closed, one thing was certain: the truth had been exposed. And for those still searching for justice, the hunt wasn't over. Not yet.